Sudan is witnessing a general strike this Tuesday as a result of the call for protests to increase pressure on the army, which refuses to transfer power to civilians. Over 6 weeks now since the dismissal of Omar al-Bashir following the pressure from the street. Human Rights Watch founder Robert Bernstein, a strong U.S. supporter of political dissent and freedom of expression, died on Monday at age 96. The New York Times reported. The newspaper obtained confirmation of his death from one of his 3 sons in a New York hospital. In Gabon, the country wants to learn from the past in football, according to the sports minister yesterday in a press conference. The situation of the national team and the end of the national championship were among the issues debated. These are our top stories. Stay tuned for more details in this newscast. After the suspension of the negotiations due to disagreement over the establishment of the Sovereign Council, Sudan is on its 2nd day of strike and everything is idling. Many shops and companies in the public and private sector did not open this Tuesday, and this has been so since the general strike started. The strike was initiated by leaders of unions which joined the movement of protest since the departure of Omar al-Bashir. This strike has brought divisions among the protesters but failed to destroy the protest that has turned into a general strike for 2 days now and which has so far paralyzed the country. Over the past week, unions in multiple sectors have announced their support for a general strike. The Airline Pilots Union, for instance, followed suit and several flights have been cancelled today. Despite the fact that the military promised to dismiss strikers and announced that non-strikers would receive triple their salary, the street does not empty and strikers keep challenging the military. The establishment of the Sovereign Council, the body that must lead the country during the transition, in which soldiers demand 2/3 of the positions, which is not in the opinion of civilians. These points are mainly those preventing the dialogue from reaching a happy ending, which led to the suspension of the dialogue between the two parties, originally due to the general strike movement in force. South Africa is one of the biggest polluters on the African continent. This Monday, the country pleasantly surprised environmentalists. President Ramaphosa enacted a law in favor of the fight against carbon emissions in his country. This is a tax to businesses on their emission of carbon dioxide. The amount of this tax, which comes into force on the 1st of June, has been fixed at 120 rand or just over €7 per ton of carbon dioxide. In a statement by the South African Ministry of Treasury, it is stated that climate change is one of the greatest challenges humans are facing, and the primary goal of the carbon tax is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in a sustainable way. The reactions of environmental advocates were quick. The Worldwide Fund for Nature praised President Ramaphosa's initiative for enacting this long-standing law. Greenpeace said the tax sends a signal to polluting companies, but regrets that the amount is not enough for them to be convinced to reduce their carbon dioxide emissions. Until 2022, the tax must be revalued each year by the amount of inflation valued by 2 points, and then from 2023, only the amount of inflation reassessed. South Africa, the continent's leading industrial power, is extremely dependent on coal for its electricity production. It is the 14th largest polluter among several of the greatest polluting countries on the planet, according to Greenpeace. In the United States, Robert Bernstein, American defender of political dissent and freedom of expression and founder of Human Rights Watch, passed away on Monday evening at the age of 96. His death, which occurred in a hospital in New York, was announced by the New York Times newspaper, which obtained confirmation of his death from one of his 3 sons. Robert Bernstein, a professional publisher, founded Human Rights Watch during the Cold War. He was the head of Random Publishing House. He published different American writers such as Toni Morrison, Theodore Seuss, also known as Dr. Seuss, and Gore Vidal, as well as Soviet dissidents like Andrei Sakharov and Elena Bonner, and the Czechoslovakian Václav Havel. The US president's visit to Japan mainly focused on friendly exchanges and goodwill between the two allies. Japan has had a tremendous advantage for many years, but it's okay, and maybe that's why you love us so much, Donald Trump said during a meeting with leading Japanese managers, including those in the automotive sector, just after landing in Japan. On the sidelines of this visit, discussions went on during Saturday night between the Japanese Economy Minister Toshimitsu Motegi and the U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer. U.S. President Donald Trump and his Japanese counterpart opted for fair trade relations. In addition, the American president enjoyed a round of golf, attended a sumo tournament, and met the new emperor Naruhito. With regard to the state visit by the U.S. president, Japan opts for relaxation and consensus. To better avoid angry issues, especially less stubborn than China, but less eager than the European Union to reach an agreement on the U.S. trade offensive, Japan obviously chose the strategy of the red tatami for the 4-day visit by U.S. President Donald Trump to the country, even if it meant turning a state visit into a time of recreation or leisure activities. U.S. President Donald Trump leaves Japan after a state visit during which he was the first foreign leader to meet with the new emperor, Naruhito. Minister of State for Sports Affairs Alain-Claude Billy-Binze held a press conference at Libreville Sports Palace before several journalists. The first authority in charge of sports in Gabon reconsidered the national team issue and the closing of the local championship. It was urgent for the Minister of State in charge of sports in Gabon to address the issue related to the Panthers of Gabon and the First Division Championship, which ended with the victory by Saint-Mberi Sportif. According to the Gabonese sports minister, it is necessary that all entities in the football sector work together to find the best possible formula to improve the situation of Gabonese football. To the issue on the national football team of Gabon, Alain-Claude Billy-Binze reminded that things are clear. The African Cup of Nations of the year 2021 and the African Nations Championship are the challenges ahead of Patrice Neveu, while considering that from now on, playing for the national team is no longer to be taken for granted by anyone and only the player's current performance will lead to the national team. While rumors and reports of mistreatment, sexual harassment, touching and even rape of girls selected for the under-20 women's national football team are going down well on social media, the sports minister has been clear. It will be zero impunity if the facts are proven, because according to Alain-Claude Billy-Binze, sports must be the factor of solidarity, but especially that of gathering. Sudan is witnessing a general strike this Tuesday as a result of the call for protests to increase pressure on the army, which refuses to transfer power to civilians. Over 6 weeks now since the dismissal of Omar el-Bashir following the pressure from the street. Human Rights Watch founder Robert Bernstein, a strong U.S. supporter of political dissent and freedom of expression, died on Monday at age 96. The New York Times reported the newspaper obtained confirmation of his death from one of his 3 sons in a New York hospital. In Gabon, the country wants to learn from the past in football, according to the sports minister yesterday in a press conference. The situation of the national team and the end of the national championship were among the issues debated. That's all for our newscast today. Stay tuned on Gabon 24 for more news.